Hey you guys, it seems like every week I have so much that I want to share with you guys, but we run out of time or I get distracted and I inevitably leave out some sort of important thing that I wanted to communicate to you. So here's this week's deleted scenes. So this week we dealt with Philippians 2:12 through 18, where Paul continues the instruction about unity. We've just read about the importance of unity in the end of chapter 1, the example of Christ in humility as the way for us to live in unity in the beginning of chapter 2, and now we have some practical instruction on what unity actually looks like. This past Wednesday, we dialed in on the ideas that we're each called to work out our own salvation, setting aside our plans and designs for our lives and submitting to God's best for us. That's this whole idea of obedience, as in humility, admitting we don't know the right way, but God does, and we can submit to that in obedience. But this isn't just an individual thing. So it's important for us to set aside our claims to our rights and privileges in our own personal devotional lives. There are also implications for how we operate in our relationships with other believers. We engage in confession, we consider their needs before our own, and we set aside our own rights and privileges for their good. We cease grumbling and complaining, and we give our lives for the good of the people around us. So we engage in this healthy relationships, healthy conflict resolution, and because of that authentic community, no one around us is living around us. It's living in this way. It's so countercultural. We're going to stick out and we're going to shine like stars in the world, in the universe, in the heavens. But there's one little bit that I wish I had time to dig into this week, and it's this whole Paul's statement of being poured out like a drink offering that he says in verse 18. Paul was using the offering as a metaphor for his impending death. He used it again in 2 Timothy, which was a lot closer to his actual death. But when Paul wrote Philippians, he still had a few years left, even though he was under house arrest in Rome and his future was uncertain. But that's what he's talking about, though, isn't it? He doesn't know what's going to happen. But whether he's giving his life for the sake of the gospel and indirectly for the believers in Philippi, or whether he continues to live, he will live for the gospel. In life or death, there is joy because of it. And just like Jesus gave his life for the good of people, he was that sacrifice that atoned for sins. Paul gave his life for the good of people. And even though he didn't know exactly when he wrote Philippians, eventually, several years later, he would actually give his life for the sake of the gospel. And so we follow in those examples. In the example of Jesus, Jesus poured out his life in his blood as a drink offering, as the burnt offering, as if we go back to the Old Testament sacrificial system, it's all about atoning for sins and acknowledging our sinfulness and offering part of what we have for that sacrifice of sin. But Jesus was that sacrifice. And Paul followed Jesus' example by giving his life for the good of the people around him. And following those examples, we can confidently give our lives, both actually and metaphorically, for the good of the people around us, so that we can all experience joy because of the grace of Jesus and the work of God in our lives. And so I think as we all continue to submit to what God has for us that we can live in that authentic community. We can be honest with each other. We can resolve conflict in healthy ways. We can put each other's needs above our own, and therefore all of our needs are getting met. And it's a beautiful thing, and a thing that's countercultural and sticks out in this culture. And I just love this book. I love Philippians and what it has to teach us about what it means to live in joyful, authentic community. And so I can't wait to move forward into as we go through chapter 2 next week and into chapter 3. It's got a lot to teach us. So we'll see you again next time.